Okay, so what I did on my summer vacation. This is these are stories of my summer as a child. I'm just gonna kind of put them all together as if they were the same summer. So when I was like 5 years old, me and my best friend Billy from down the street got our money together and we bought a plastic AM radio at a yard sale down the street for like a quarter. I can't remember if it was pink or if it was yellow. I think it was yellow plastic. But his mom opened up the back of it and took the old crusty batteries out of it. She cleaned it all up and put some batteries in it and got it working. And me and Billy sat on the front porch, on the front steps of his house, and listened to Indy 500 on that little radio. Of course, it was May, May, Memorial Day weekend, and we had RC Colas, and she gives a sleeve of saltine crackers. Me and Billy sat there on the porch and listened to the Indy 500 on the radio, and we had RC Colas and saltine crackers. One of my favorite childhood memories. Me and Billy would go around and collect pop bottles, empty Coke bottles, returnables. You can take them back to the store and they'd give you a dime a piece for them. So we'd go around, we'd either have a shopping cart or we'd have a wagon or something. We'd go around and knock on people's doors and ask them for empty pop bottles. And they'd give us pop bottles, and we'd take them down to the Kroger store there in Linwood Square and return them for the dime deposit and pay the deposit on the bottles back in. But with that little bit of change we had, we started riding the city bus. You could ride a city bus anywhere in the city for like 40 cents, 35 cents, 40 cents, something like that. And so we'd ride downtown and go through all the museums down there and look at all the little parks and the Soldiers and Sailors Monument downtown on the Circle. You could go all the way to the top of that thing and you could see for a long ways. I once heard that there used to be a law that no building downtown could be taller than the Circle Monument, Soldiers and Sailors Monument. So you could stand on top of that thing and you could see forever, man. It seemed like. But you could walk the steps up there for free, or you could ride an elevator up there and back for 15 cents, I think it was. But down in the basement of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument downtown there was they had all these Civil War flags, like actual flags from the different regiments that were in the Civil War, and they were all blood-stained, but I mean, you could touch them. They had them hanging on a rack like when you used to go in Kmart and buy concert posters and movie posters and things, and you could flip them one right after another. Them flags were the same way. They had big holes blown in them, and they were blood-soaked from where they'd been in battle and half on fire and stuff. And they had all kind of stuff down there. You can't do that nowadays. They've got all that stuff put away somewhere. Some of it's behind glass, and if you can see it at all, I don't know. But so we used to ride the bus all over the place, and from where we lived on the east side, you could ride all the way out to Castleman Square, but the bus wouldn't go all the way to Castleman Square. It would stop like a block away or 2 blocks away. You'd have to get off the bus and walk the rest of the way to Castleman Square, which was probably like on 82nd Street or 86th Street or something. I can't remember exactly. One side of that is 86th Street, the other side is 82nd Street or something. I don't know. You couldn't ride a bus all the way out there. That was the whole deal. But we'd go out to Eastgate, and we'd go to Washington Square Mall. They just built Washington Square. Eastgate Mall used to be a open air mall, and you'd walk between the buildings. Well, eventually they put a roof over the whole place, and that was the first mall type mall that I remember in Indianapolis. But so Billy Hardy lived with his mom and his stepdad, and his mom and dad were divorced, and he'd see his dad like every so often. His dad lived in the Dearborn Apartments, the Dearborn Motel, excuse me, the Dearborn Hotel, which was on East Michigan Street, just off the corner of Michigan and Dearborn Street. And I don't know, it was probably 10 stories, 15 stories, something like that. Well, you walk in the first floor and you can walk straight through there and you go right out onto a basketball court if you were there to play basketball. But you can go onto the second floor and there was a balcony. You could sit up there and watch people down there playing basketball. Well, we did that sometimes, but on the 5th floor was a pool hall, a billiards room, and they had pool tables and billiard tables, and they had pinball machines, and they had duck pin bowling. I don't know if you about duck pin bowling, but it was like a machine. It was a bowling alley, and the bowling ball was just a little bit bigger than grapefruit, I guess. So we'd go over to see his dad, and we'd go hang out in there and stuff. His dad was kind of a creepy old guy. He was a nice enough guy, but he was kind of creepy. He had a kind of a bad reputation as being a creep and a weirdo, but that's a different story for a different time, I guess. The guy was always cool with me. He was always nice to me. And his son was like my best friend ever. Oh my God. So his dad had gone somewhere or something, I don't know, but he had like 5 cherry bombs. All right, now cherry bombs back in the day meant something different. All right, a real cherry bomb was like kaboom, like, oh, I don't know, like they said M80s were like a quarter of a stick of dynamite. Back in the day, they probably really were. But the cherry bombs were at least that strong, if not stronger. Somehow, his dad had given my buddy 5 of these things. And I don't know, we blew a hole in the ground, just lit one and threw it on the ground. It blew a hole in the ground big enough to, as big as your head, like a hard hat. I mean, it was a gigantic hole. And we blew up this and we blew up that. Well, he lit one and threw it in the air, and it landed on the roof and rolled down into the gutter and blew a hole in the gutter big enough to stick your fist through. Well, his stepdad had just paid to have these gutters put on this house. And at the time, that was like $1,200. I mean, it was 60s, late 60s. So anyhow, he called the house and said to my dad, "What do I do?" And Dad said, "Beat his ass." So it seemed like I got whooped at Billy Hardy's house, and I got whooped when I got home too. For the same thing, I got whooped twice, by the neighbor and by my dad. And I don't know that the old man ever paid any money to. I can't remember how that went. I just know he blew a hole in the gutter, and I got in trouble for it too. I had nothing to do with it. I was just standing there. So we just have some of the best summers. Kid had built a wooden box with wheels on it, on one end of it, and a handle, so that he could use it on his paper route. Well, he never used it. It was kind of lame. It didn't work out real good. It was already heavy, and then when you put papers in, it was even heavier. So it was sitting in his backyard. Somehow he'd give it to me, or I bought it from him for 50 cents or something. I don't know. But I nailed a big long 2x4 on the end of it, and a cross piece, and put some wheels on it, made a go-kart out of it. Man, I had a blast with this thing. So my older brother's buddy was over at the house, and I'm out there playing with it. I got in it, and he was pushing me down the sidewalk. Man, we were flying, because I was a little kid, and hell, he was a teenager, you know, and I wouldn't say he was an athlete, but he was a tall, thin guy, and them guys all run around. They was all pretty fast and sports kind of guys, but they were also kind of hippies and stuff. And I don't want to say this guy's name, but he's kind of Eddie Haskell kind of guy. Oh, it's sure is a lovely dress you're wearing tonight, Mrs. Morrison. And one of them kind of guys. And but he had his leather jacket on, and he got his blue jeans on with his little whatever kind of tennis shoes, PK Flyers, I think was what them guys was wearing back then. Instead of Converse, we all wore Converse when we got older, but they was wearing something Keds or something, I don't know. Man, he pushed me down the sidewalk, and you got to the end of the sidewalk, there was a driveway, and that thing jumped off the edge of the curb there by that driveway, and it broke the axle. And we both wrecked, and he went skidding across the street on his face and tore his leather jacket up and skinned his hand up and his cheek and everything. But I tell you what, that guy kind of got a bad rap too. But he was always cool with me. I remember when I was a kid, he was a race car guy, man. I loved the Indy 500. Well, he loved the Indy 500 and NASCAR and all that kind of stuff. He had given me a whole stack of like 8x10 photos, signed pictures of like AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti. I mean, these were real authentic stuff. Like he got out of his own collection or something. I don't know. He gave them to me. I had, 4 or 5 of them. It was pretty cool. And I just remember that as I was telling you that story. But he, like everybody, come from that neighborhood pretty much. We all had our faults, and we all had our problems with the law, you know, and that kind of stuff. And he had his problems with all that too. So, but I remember running around in the summertime. Man, I'd run around barefoot. I mean, I would not wear shoes. It was a hassle. Mom would fight me to get me to put shoes on. My feet would get so messed up, the joints underneath my toes would get dried and crack and bleed. I still didn't want to wear shoes. I was just a kid. But I run around with some folks down the street from me, and there was a house down on the corner, and it was a rental, and there was all kind of different people. I remember there was a bunch of different people that lived there at one time or another, and I was friends with some of them. But a friend of mine, one of the family that moved in there, the guy's name was Harold, and Harold and he had a little brother named Randy, and there was probably 2 or 3 brothers, and I think they had a little sister and stuff. And so Harold was the same age as me and his best friend, and that kid run around all summer in these cowboy boots he had. He'd be in his swimming trunks, have nothing on but his swimming trunks and his cowboy boots, and we'd be running all over the place, just having a great time. He was my best friend. I loved that guy. Love that guy. So Harold and them moved. Like I said, that house was a rental property, and Harold moved, and I was heartbroken because my best friend moved. I never seen him again. Well, years later, I was on a job site working as a carpenter, and there were some guys there doing some insulation work, and this Randy guy. Anyhow, he had his last name was on his shirt, and I said, "What's your?" I used to know a guy. I said, "What's your name?" He said, "Randy." And I said, "Man, you got a brother named Harold?" He goes, "Yeah." Come find out, it was Harold's little brother, Randy. And I told him the story about how I was all shook up because Harold moved. He said, "Man, we just moved on the other side of 16th Street." So them guys probably didn't move 2 miles away, maybe maybe 2 miles away at the tops. At tops, it was 2 miles. And so he was there the whole time. I didn't even know. But because he moved on the other side of 16th Street there, put him in a different school district, so I never seen him at my school anymore. Cat was gone. I was all tore up because my best friend moved away. Oh my God, he's moved to Kansas or something. No, he moved 2 miles away. So anyhow, back to Grant Street. We lived on Grant Street. Had everybody in the neighborhood. There was a bunch of big families and stuff. We were one of the big families from that neighborhood. The guy down the street, his dad, I believe he was a war veteran, but he drank all the time, had a real bad problem. And all the time you'd see the fire department or the ambulance coming down the street, and there he was laid out in somebody's front yard, passed out or something. Had having a heart attack or just drunk and passed out, and somebody thought he was dead or something. So he was like Otis, you know what I'm saying, from the Andy Griffith show, Otis. But Wally, guy's name was Wally. And he was. I always liked the guy, and I loved his family. His wife was kind of mean, but you got to figure, you know, she had a husband that was drunk and gone, or gone getting drunk, like most of the time. And she had to take care of the kids. So she worked. She was the money maker. Took care of the house, and she was the disciplinarian. And so I understand. But across the street from them was Mrs. Fry. And Mrs. Fry was like 92 years old. Like she was 100 years old, I don't know. And her old man had died back, I don't know, I guess in the 50s. Anyhow, Miss Fry had a tattoo on each forearm, and she was so old that the tattoos were unrecognizable. And I asked her, I said, "What's them tattoos? What's that?" She says, "Tattoo." I said, "What's it of?" She took a picture of something. And she was so old that she had no idea what the tattoos were. She said, "Honey, I don't even remember anymore. I don't even know what that is." So across the street where my friend lived, his mom, and the side of their house was like a little efficiency apartment that was there, and they rented it out to this guy, and he was a creep. He was just a weirdo. This guy was like insane, and he'd come out to go to work like in the afternoon, and he'd be yelling stuff, just weird stuff out of his, just, "Oh, you so-and-sos," and blah, 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 as he was walking to his car. And Miss Fry's sitting on her porch, and she had a BB gun to keep the cats out of her yard. Keep the dogs out of the yard to keep them from messing with her cats. So she'd be sitting on the porch all the time, and she had this BB gun, like a Red Ryder BB gun. And that guy come out and doing that stuff, and she started shooting at him with that BB gun. The cops all showed up. It was a great big deal. I mean, oh man, there's cops all over the place. And they made that guy move out. And Miss Fry didn't get him into trouble or anything, but always something going on in the neighborhood. Down the street in the middle of the block was Mrs. Crum, and Mrs. Crum was like some real weird, mean old lady, lived there by herself, and she'd pick on the kids all the time, yell at us kids, and just cause everybody a problem. And she was, the kids kind of pestered her too, I'm sure, but she, I can't remember what she did, but there was a lady who lived across the street from us, and it's a friend of mine's, their mom. And she went down, and she had a baby. Had their little sister, was just a baby at the time. And she went down there and got into it with this Mrs. Crum. Miss Crum was a real old lady. And she was standing in the yard arguing with Mrs. Crum, and everybody was standing there. Hell, half the neighborhood was standing there. And that Miss Crum slapped my friend's mom. And in doing that, she slapped her, and her hand ricocheted off the woman and hit the baby. And oh my God, it was on then, man. The whole neighborhood was up in arms. The cops got called, and man, I don't know whatever happened to that old lady. She was gone. That was it. That was the straw broke the camel's back. But Man, I remember being when I was a kid in the summertime, man, just a little kid. It was the greatest thing ever. The house across the street where that lady and her kids lived, friends of mine, Scott, Jeff, and the little sister's name was Becky. Everybody hung out at their house or in front of in the street in front of our houses. So I'd get up in the morning, go out there and sit on the porch, sit on the steps, and talk to my friends, and half of them was already there riding around in circles on their bicycles, and I'd put my shoes on and talk to everybody and hang out. I was sitting there one day, put my shoes on, and my grandfather, my mom's father, my papaw, come flying by. He had like a 71 Chrysler New York, a big tan colored, big old, the Titanic, a big old land yacht car. Boom, here he goes by, man, he just getting it. And I'm sitting there, I thought, man, I think that was Papaw. And about 10 minutes later, here it comes again. Boom. And I hollered in the house, I said, Mom, Papaw still got that tan colored car? She says, yeah. She says, why? I said, because I think he just drove by here twice. Now, Papaw was born in 1900, so in 1972, he was 72 years old. She said, well, he's probably lost. She said, if he comes by here again, holler at him because he's probably lost. So it was 10 minutes later, here it comes again. I said, hey! He seen me and slammed on the brakes, and he come back. He said, boy, I'm glad you hollered at me. He said, I've been looking for this house for 20 minutes. It was more like 40 minutes. But we lived in the same house from the time I was 10 months old to, I don't know, I was 20 or something. By that time in 72, we'd been living there 8 years, 10 years, I don't know. But yeah, all my friends hanging out there, and I had a bicycle that had wheelie bars on it, like store-bought stuff, and I bought the bike just because the wheelie bars was on it. So my buddy lived down the street. I was telling you about his dad. He had a very similar bike, and we ended up painting them. Well, we ended up painting them both the same color. So we're out there riding around in circles, and he said, can I ride your bike? I'm like, yeah. So he's on his bike, he's on my bike, and I'm riding his bike. Well, he's on my bike, the one that actually had wheelie bars, and you could pull the thing up in a wheelie, and the wheelie bars would catch you. You could ride a wheelie all over town. And all the wheelie bar was just this thing hanging off the back of your bike. It had like skateboard wheels on it. So you kick it back like that, and you ride all over the place on this wheelie. So anyhow, I was on his bike, and he's on mine, and we're talking. I forget that I'm not on my bike because it's the same, almost the same bike. It was the same color, same handlebars and everything, and a little Schwinn Stingray. And I pulled it up expecting that thing to catch me, and it didn't catch me, man. And I fell back, and I landed flat in the middle of the street on my back. I mean, man, I hit a ton, and knocked the wind out of me, and come to find out that's all it did. I thought I broke my back. I couldn't move. I couldn't do nothing. I thought I broke my back. And they come and called an ambulance. The ambulance come got me and took me to the community hospital. Come to find out I hadn't broken anything. And but I don't know what year that was, early 70s, probably 73, 74, something like that. It cost the old man $163 for me to take a ride in an ambulance to community hospital out there on 16th Street. Man, he was pissed. And so anyhow, and I was telling you about my friend Billy down the street. The neighborhood place wasn't really in our neighborhood, it was the next neighborhood over. But anyhow, it was the community Little League. Everybody played baseball over at Community Little League. I never did. I think Billy might have. He was a few years older than me, but he wasn't a very big guy at all. He was real athletic guy, but he was, I mean, in 8th grade, he looked like he was a 4th grader, you know what I mean? He was probably 4 years older, 3 or 4 years older than me, I don't know. But he had found a whole stack of tickets to the Community Little League Ice Cream Social. Somebody had lost a whole stack of tickets. There must have been 60 tickets there, maybe 90. Hell, it might have been a pack of, it was either a pack of 50 or a pack of 100. I think it might have been 100 of them. And they looked like about the size of business cards, a little bit bigger, and the stack was probably 2 inches thick. Well, they had them prices on them. They were like, you could sell them for like, I don't know, $1 a piece, or 5 for $3 or something. I don't know, something like that. But the price was on the ticket. So anyhow, like I said, he and I'd been walking around and knocking on people's doors and getting pop bottles and stuff. So we was walking around and was selling them tickets. Man, we had a great time that summer because we had all this extra cash that we didn't have to work for. Back in the neighborhood there, everybody had either a paper route, or you cut grass, or in the summertime you cut grass, in the wintertime you shoveled snow, or you painted somebody's house, or did yard work or something, you know, just anything to make extra buck. So here we got this big old stack of tickets, and hell, it was like having a stack of cash because all we did was just sold them tickets. And man, we had RC colas and moon pies, and we ordered a pizza from the place down the street. Villa Pizza was right down the street, and the Blue Ribbon restaurant was down there. We'd go in there. We had all kind of money. It was only like $60, but you know, but the $35 or something, I don't know. But hey, we were just kids. I was probably 7 or 8, and he was probably 9 or 10, 11 years old, something like that. But well, it was a great time. We had all that disposable money. Although we had all that money we didn't earn, didn't have to work for. But man, we did all kinds of stuff like that. But nowadays, man, where I live is a fairly new housing addition, you know, one of them vinyl villages. And I got a pretty nice house, a pretty nice neighborhood and everything. And there's kids in the neighborhood. I used to drive a school bus over there, so I know there's kids in the neighborhood, but you never see anybody outside. Man, you'd be driving through town, and I mean, unless you in the poor part of town, you know, where kids ain't got nothing else to do, man, you don't see kids outside playing. Nobody comes around and asks you, can I cut your grass, or can I shovel your driveway for you? None of that stuff. There's a kid down the street, and an Asian kid. He's 15, I think. But he's not being raised, you know, the lazy, slothful American way like we do nowadays. He runs on the cross-country track team, and he's always out there riding his bicycle or walking with his grandparents or something, exercising or something. And I asked him, I said, hey man, I stopped him on his bicycle one day. I got that kid, that kid cuts my grass for me. And he said, yeah, I'll do it. He didn't do a real good job the first time, but the second time it gets better every time he does it. He gets better at it. And the wife said, well, what do you think? How come this looks better than it did the first time? I said, I think he probably went home and watched a YouTube video to learn how to cut grass. But he's a real good kid, and he does that. And anyhow, the guy across the street seen him cutting grass in my place, so he cutting that guy's grass, and then the people next door to him, and then the people directly across the street from him. So he's got like 4 yards now. The last time he was over at my place cutting my grass, he said, he thanked me. He said, I want to thank you for asking me to do that for you. He said, because now I'm cutting that guy's grass, and them people's grass, and them people down there. And he said, it turned into a pretty good little side job for me. His parents own a restaurant in a little strip mall behind us there. And so he's either at school or he's doing his track and field stuff and working at that restaurant. So Well, I call him and said, look, you know, there's money on the porch for you. You know, when you get a chance, come over and cut my grass. So when he ever gets a minute, he comes down and cuts grass. And he's a real good guy, but normally you don't see, like I said, you don't see anybody outside. Nobody's doing nothing. Everybody's just sitting around with their hand out expecting somebody to give you something. I go to work every day, you know. I'm an old guy. I'm still working, you know, 'cause ain't nobody ever give me nothing, you know. So, but yeah, I probably should have broke all these up into little stories, because I just looked at the thing up here and I've been talking for 30 minutes, and I doubt I'll ever get anybody looking into this stuff. But that's what I did on my summer vacation. So, if you got this far, if you listen to my crap, I appreciate it. It's cool. I don't know. I'm just really bored. And so I got this YouTube video. I was going to make videos of motorcycle repairs. I never got around to doing it, so I started putting songs on here, stories and things. And if you guys want to watch that stuff, that's cool. If not, that's cool too. But it's summertime. It's been raining for a couple of days, and it's supposed to rain for the next 4 or 5 days. So here I'm at work, and that weird day where the windshield keeps fogging up. But yeah, I'm gonna see how this goes, and if not, I'll break them up into little stories or something. I got a million stories, a million jokes. I can't tell all the jokes because most of them's dirty jokes. Nobody really wants to hear my stories. I guess I'm not as interesting as I thought I was. But recording these little videos, just trying to entertain myself, because like I said, I've done a lot of stuff in my time, and this is about the boringest. It's the boringest job I've ever had. But it pays pretty good, so I don't know if you've noticed it. We're hauling sand. So back and forth and back and forth. See that big yellow truck coming at us right there? I'm driving a truck exactly like that one. And it hauls 50 tons at a time. Big old truck. So, right on. Get outside. Go do something. Water your lawn. Talk to the neighbor kid. Go visit the old people next door. See how they're doing it. Ask them if they want to come sit down on your porch, have a bottle of water, and just have a conversation with somebody. Get out. Get it out, dust it off, and let's go for a ride. Godspeed, everybody. Keep your powder dry and don't take no wooden nickels.